searching for this all my life. You're just my type. I've been looking for a boy who can treat me right. Your dark hair, because eyes so bright.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Scheananigans. I hope everyone is having a great summer so far. So if you're a fan of Vanderpump Rules or, you listen to this podcast regularly, you've likely heard me discuss my maternal mental health journey with postpartum OCD. And I have gotten so many people who have reached out to me over the last few years. And I just wanted to get into that a little more. So many people have said that either themselves, their sister, their friend have suffered similarly, but also never heard of postpartum OCD. So some have asked for some advice or resources in helping themselves or a loved one get help. So this week, I want to get into that a little deeper. And I feel like when we as women come together, we are stronger. We need to support each other, especially with things like this. So in that spirit, I've asked my dear friend, the beautiful Nia Sanchez, to join the discussion today. She is not only the epitome of beauty and grace, and I mean, she literally has the titles to prove it. Miss USA 2014, Miss Universe, first runner-up, and also she has her 5th degree black belt in Taekwondo, which is so insanely impressive. Like, I want to do one of those self-defense classes with you.
You need to come to a class. It's so much fun.
Literally.
Yeah.
But also, you so bravely discussed your postpartum journey on season 1 of The Valley. I'm sure we'll see more of that on season 2. So I just thought you being here to help co-host this episode with me would just add so much value to it. And also here to help guide our conversation and provide clinical insight on this important topic, we're joined by nationally recognized OCD, anxiety, and parenting expert, author of Hello Baby, Goodbye, Intrusive Thoughts. Like, yes, I need more of that.
I need that in my life too.
It's a compassionate guide for new moms dealing with anxiety, OCD, and alarming thoughts. So please welcome clinical psychologist, Dr. Jennifer Yip. How we doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Me too.
It's such an important topic and so often mislooked.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we recently met at the International OCD Foundation conference in Orlando.
Amazing.
And we had already had this podcast planned, but I was so excited that it worked out that we're doing it after we got to meet in person.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Scheana got the Illumination Award at the conference
Yeah.
for really
Thank
highlighting
you.
this to the public because, as you said, there's not much information on postpartum OCD, and so many women gets misdiagnosed.
I didn't even know, I had never heard of postpartum OCD until you were talking about it on the show. I had no idea.
I had no idea until my therapist said to me, have you ever been diagnosed with OCD? And I'm like, you know what? My whole life, I've felt that I had OCD, but it reached a new level after I had summer, and the intrusive thoughts got so much worse that I started looking for resources. Do I get on medication? Do I try EMDR therapy? Like, what can I do to help this? And I feel like I've tried it all. I'm still on that journey, just figuring out what works best for me. But I just thought it was a really important topic to discuss on this podcast. I have a mainly women following who a lot of them have grown with us as they've watched the show. They're parents now. And also, I know it's not just women who can struggle with postpartum. I know it affects men as well, which most people wouldn't think about. Right. So I just wanted to get into all things mental health.
Yes.
Yes. And I feel like all the mamas need this resource.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
there's so much that we don't know, so much to learn. I feel like we can all have like really good takeaways to be able to like apply in our life because it's just wild, the postpartum period. I've had 2 separate postpartum periods after my son. It was very much rainbows and sunshine, and I was like living my best life. And then after my girls, I didn't expect to be hit with so much emotionally and the thoughts and everything because I had never experienced it the first time, but it was just a whole different experience.
Yeah. So she had very close pregnancies, a son, and then identical twin girls right after that.
Yes,
so now you have what, 3 under 3?
3 under 3 now. It was
Yes,
3
that's
under 2 for
challenging.
6 months. I'm trying to go for 4 under 4. We'll see if I
my.
get lucky. I
Yeah,
don't know.
you go, girl. She's
One more.
like a superwoman. I watch her Instagram stories and I see her with, like her son in either the stroller or walking, and then one twin here, straps one on the back. I'm
Yeah.
like, you do it all. And she just always makes it look so graceful. But I know it's like there's Instagram, there's
Yes.
reality.
Yes,
And
yes.
but it is both with you. I feel like, you have a great life, a great marriage, you have 3 amazing kids, but also there's so much that comes with that.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. It may
No.
look easy and beautiful always on Instagram, but I know it's not always that way. So
Yeah.
I also just kind of wanted to highlight that, everything you see online, there's always so much more to the story. Everything you see on TV, there's always more to the story.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought it was important to get into all of that.
Social
So-
media is a highlight reel for sure. Like even yesterday, I posted a lot of really pretty Instagram stories.
Yeah.
I cried on the way to church. I was just like, I'm too tired and I'm overwhelmed and I can't do it. And then like, okay, you're out. People are, okay, smile, take a deep breath. We're ready for the day, even though I was crying 5 minutes before. So it's just like social media is a highlight reel. And even when someone looks like they have it all together, very likely they don't. That's just real life.
No, totally. How long until cameras were up for you?
So for Asher, it was after the girls that we started filming. So
it was. Okay.
yes, but after Asher, my postpartum was great. I got pregnant though 10 and a half months, like almost 11 months after he
Right.
was born. So even for example, right now I'm slowly weaning, and I had never experienced the hormonal dip that comes after weaning because I was breastfeeding and then I got pregnant and we still kept breastfeeding and then
Yeah.
eventually weaned off, but I had the pregnancy hormones. So I'm even right now in a new stage where it's like, what am I experiencing in my mind? And you can probably tell me. But like, yeah. So if we rewind though, all the way back to after the girls, it was 5 weeks.
That's right.
since
Okay.
they
Yeah.
were
Because
born.
they were so
Mhm.
tiny.
They were so
Yeah.
little because twins as well,
Yes.
they're smaller when they're born. So they were 5 pounds, 5 ounces, 5 pounds, 6 ounces.
Mhm.
And they kind of dropped weight. So they were maybe 6 pounds when we started filming.
Mhm.
And I think it was the pressures of being a twin mom with a toddler at home, the hormone surges, which you can tell me more about, tell us more about. And then also the pressures of filming and like trying to like just trying to do it all.
Everything.
And it wasn't possible. And then I
Yeah.
had intrusive thoughts and I had just like, it was just like so much sadness. It was
Right.
hard to describe. And I was really afraid that it was my new normal. Like I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm like, do I have to learn to function like this forever? Am I just always going to be sad? That's just how I truly
Yeah.
felt. And I was actually a producer that was 8 months postpartum. And she was like, this is not forever. You
Mhm.
will get out of it. And I was like, are you sure? I don't think so. Like it was really, really,
Yeah.
really hard. I was just so sad and like
Yes.
on the verge of tears
Right.
all the time. As if anybody watched season 1, they saw someone would like say one thing and I would just be like, meh.
Mhm.
Instant tears. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very normal for the postpartum period, especially being a new mama for twins. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember that period in my journey, and that was insane
Yeah.
because if you're breastfeeding, you're not just breastfeeding one, right?
Right.
And I remember calling my twin boys, they're like milk addicts.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was just a milk factory.
That's all you're doing is
And that
making
was
milk.
all I was doing was trying to pump enough milk to support their weight. And there was no time for me, no time to think, no time to be, no time to remember anything except for I need to feed these boys.
Right.
Because they were losing weight too because they were twins. The thing about the postpartum period is that, yes, you have your hormonal fluctuations. However, if you think about it, when we are new parents, what is our number one responsibility?
Baby.
Our baby,
Yeah.
right? It's to protect our baby and ensure that they are healthy and they're safe. And, unfortunately, during this period is also the most vulnerable for the baby, right? And therefore, our minds are naturally going to be thinking more about potential dangers that can harm them. And if we're thinking those thoughts that are natural, however, then we are bothered by them or we feel bad about them, we feel guilty for why am I having such terrible thoughts, then that adds another layer of guilt.
Mhm.
And guilt is the one thing that we don't need to have more of, and the one thing that actually drives more intrusive thoughts. So if you think about it, you have your hormonal fluctuations, you have the added pressure of this newborn, you have the intrusive thoughts that come from all of the vigilance that you need to have for the safety and protection of your newborn. And then you have no time for yourself to rest, to be, to think, to eat. So that's like the perfect storm for, maternal unwellness is what I call it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long was it when you
Days.
started- Days. Oh my goodness. I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
I had only been home from the hospital 3 days before we started filming.
I cannot.
Wow.
imagine.
Yeah.
So much.
Summer
pressure.
was too
Wow.
young to even be on camera for the first week because the baby has to be 15 days.
Yeah.
Oh my
And she was
goodness.
only like 8 days old when we started filming.
I mean, imagine
I
that
cannot.
pressure.
No.
Right? You-
Yeah.
I
So
can't
then
imagine. Yeah.
now I'm like remembering this. I was like, Asher, I'm like, oh no, you did. You had the twins. I'm picturing us
Yes.
at Jackson Brittany's
Yes.
house, 2 little babies. You
Yeah.
had a toddler. And I'm like, I mean, it was gnarly for me with 1, but
Yeah.
for you to have 3 just a
Mhm.
few weeks after, I mean,
That is crazy.
Yeah. It was a lot.
wild.
Mhm.
Okay, we're going to take a quick little break. And then I have so many questions for you. We'll be right back. If you're a new parent, a bad day means you either ran out of coffee, diapers, patience, or D, all of the above. Stocking up on cold brew and deep breaths are all you, but at least Hello Bello's got your baby's butt covered. So this is something I just set up for my bestie Janet because thankfully Summer Moon is now out of diapers, but Janet's baby is still in them for quite some time. Hello Bello believes all families deserve premium, affordable baby products with their ultra convenient diaper bundle subscription service that includes 7 packs of diapers and 4 packs of plant-based wipes. You'll never run out of supplies. And better yet, they're delivered to your door. Set, change, cancel your delivery whenever you want. As a parent, I just know how hard it is to remember to have everything you need to buy. It's a lot. We've got a lot on our plates already. So take that pressure off. They're named the best diaper subscription by New York Magazine and winner of the 2022 Good Housekeeping Parenting Award. Hello Bello will keep you stocked on diapers and wipes. Go to hellobello.com/honey to get 30% off your first customized bundle and a full-size freebie product of your choice. That's hellobello.com/honey to start bundling with 30% off your first order. And don't forget, that's hellobello.com/honey. And now that we've got the baby's butt covered, how about taking care of the mom? I mean, we go through a lot as women and we need to be comfortable with wireless bras. If you've had a baby, postpartum care with leak-proof underwear. Women, you know what I'm talking about. And that is Knix. Knix is on a mission to empower people everywhere to just live unapologetically free with innovations like revolutionary leak-proof underwear and super supportive bras that don't use underwires. And that's why people everywhere are making the switch to Knix. I got some of those no-show thongs. I got some wireless bras. They are so cozy, so comfy. I can literally sleep in them. I also love that Knix gives women that extra confidence they need before and after having a baby, like nursing bras, tanks, and also the postpartum care. And you know what? Summer is here. It's still hot out. And the thigh savers from Knix are exactly that, life and thigh savers. You can avoid chafing, sweating through, and sticking to seats. I mean, these shorts also work with any outfit. And that's why millions have switched to Knix. I have, okay? You've got to check them out. Go to knix.com and get 15% off with promo code GOODASGOLD. That's knix.com, code GOODASGOLD for 15% off. knix.com. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, Dr. but do factors such as like having pregnancies with multiples, with twins or triplets, or having pregnancies within a certain window of time, does that increase someone's chances of developing maternal mental health struggles?
Unfortunately, there's no research
Mm-hmm.
to support that, of course, because there actually isn't enough attention on this topic, which is why I'm so happy that we're doing this, because the more we bring light to this area, the more it will garner interest so
Mhm.
that researchers will actually do more studies around this. Could that be possible? Sure, it could be. There could be, there's certainly a correlation, but we don't really know like what direction. Is it because of the hormonal fluctuations? Is it because the more children you have consecutively without
Mhm.
break in between, the more your body just doesn't get back to baseline, and therefore the more you're just used to all of the extra oxytocin that's in your body that produces more of that feel good, emotions and the connection with baby. So unfortunately, we don't have enough information on that.
Yeah.
And we need to.
It's wild that in today's day and age, we don't have enough research.
I know.
And like how things are changing, even from when I had Asher to when I had the girls with mastitis, which I developed both times, a few
Yeah.
times. When I had Asher, they said, oh, do lots of heat, rub like the lumps and everything.
Mhm.
And after the girls, they said, no, it's inflammation. You need to do ice packs and don't like do too much pressure. And I'm like, how in this day and age are we like, oh, we just discovered something new about
Right.
something that women have been experiencing for all time.
Yeah.
So it's
Totally.
like, how do we not have that information?
Yes. Well, I mean, here's the thing.
Wild.
We keep using the word maternal wellness.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, how much attention is actually paid on us mothers?
Right.
Right? Even
Mhm.
during prenatal visits.
Mhm.
Why did you have to go to prenatal visits? Not because the attention is focused on you and your well-being. The attention is focused on the growing fetus in your belly.
Mhm.
And then everything that you're told during that period wasn't, are you well?
Mhm.
Are you taking care of yourself? No, it's what you're doing wrong, what you can do better
Mhm.
to make sure that your baby comes out healthy. And of course, our own attention is focused on the baby as well. So therefore, there really isn't much attention paid on us.
Yeah.
And then once the baby is born, who asks how we're doing?
You get
Right?
one checkup after
Yes.
6 weeks,
One,
and that's
6
it.
weeks. And
Yes.
literally, I've talked about this on the podcast before. You fill out a questionnaire. And I even said this in my speech at the OCD conference,
Yes.
where you get asked these questions. You check a box, yes, no. And
Right.
there were so many questions I lied about because I knew it was not postpartum depression. I
Yeah.
just knew it was something different.
Yeah.
So I lied on the questionnaire. There was no follow up. There was
Yeah.
nothing. Had I not opened up to my therapist about
Right.
what was going on inside my head, finally, almost a year postpartum, I just would have thought there was something wrong with me. I didn't know what it was. And that's why I feel like so many women are afraid to speak out, because
Absolutely.
you don't want people to think that that's what you actually want to do to your baby.
Yes.
It's just,
Right.
there's so much surrounding that.
And here's the sad part is that not only is there a misconception overall, there's even a misconception and oftentimes misdiagnoses
Mhm.
in the medical world and the mental health world. So how many women have expressed their concerns about their thoughts and then get hospitalized?
Yeah.
Right.
5150,
Yeah.
or they're concerned because of the negative stigma or the horrific nature of their thoughts that their babies will be taken from them.
Mhm.
Can you, just for me, can you share exactly like what to look out for, or like what a diagnosis is of, like, would you say postpartum OCD? I don't want to get the
Yeah.
words right. Because I feel like maybe people listening might have an idea from listening to the podcast, but I don't even know like exactly if I had a friend experience something, like what do you look for?
Right.
Whether
The
you're a partner or a
difference-
friend.
Yeah. Between postpartum depression, postpartum OCD,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
in
baby
fact,
blues. I
Sure.
feel like there's
Yeah.
so many where it's like, oh, it's just baby blues. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, it's postpartum depression. No, actually, it's not that. It's postpartum
Right.
OCD.
Right.
Perinatal
because I kept
OCD,
saying
like-
OCD or baby blues, because I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to give it power. So I don't
Right.
want to say I'm depressed. So it's just
Mhm.
baby blues, but like it wasn't going away
Right.
Mhm.
at all.
I think that's
The difference between
that's
those.
the biggest difference is how much does it interfere with your functioning?
Yeah.
If you're still functioning, but the stress and the lack of sleep and all of that is interfering with your mood, and you're, sometimes feeling like you're not yourself, okay, that's naturally the baby blues. However, if you're afraid of connecting with baby or you don't want to connect with baby, that's something different. So to be more specific, postpartum OCD is when you have intrusive thoughts that you do not want to have. And that's a huge factor that a lot of people don't understand. You get horrific images about perhaps baby drowning, baby dying of SIDS, baby choking, you making a mistake somehow and causing harm to baby. Or it could even have some like forbidden sexual thoughts. So, oh my gosh, I saw a baby's genitalia. Now I'm thinking about it. Oh my goodness, I must be a pedophile. Oh my goodness, how terrible of me to have these thoughts. These are thoughts that a person with postpartum OCD does not want to have. It's very different than a person with postpartum psychosis, where these thoughts aligns with my value. And the person suffering from postpartum psychosis cannot tell the difference whether this thought is really a fabrication of my imagination or is it real. So there's a huge difference. And a person suffering from postpartum OCD wouldn't want these thoughts, and therefore they generate a lot of anxiety. And then they want to do something about it. So we engage in compulsive behaviors, whether it's checking and cleaning, or it could even involve like magical behavior. So like I remember when I was going through my postpartum OCD, every night I would have to go through my memory bank and I would have to make sure that every single thought I had was equal between the two boys.
Oh, I understand that. Ooh.
And because my fear was that one day, if I treated them differently, then somehow I would cause them emotional damage because I favored one more than the other. So that was my postpartum OCD. Now, that's not very common, right? That's not common OCD compulsions. But these are like the magical compulsions that we can engage in order to get relief, to feel better, to make sure that our intrusive thoughts, the fear that we have, won't come true. Now, postpartum psychosis, you don't have the compulsions. You don't have I need to undo this fear in order for something to prevent something bad from happening. The person with postpartum psychosis actually believe in the thoughts.
Yeah. I have a family member that had postpartum psychosis, and it was a really, really hard time for our family.
Yes.
Trying to support her, and then turned into bipolar, and it was like a whole thing with medication. And it was probably like a year, but I imagine it was maybe even a combination of things, because I remember moments where she was on so much medication, so she was very zoned out, and I remember feeding her baby with a bottle, but not looking at the baby, not making that connection, just like staring off into the distance. So she was really, and I feel like I don't know anyone that talks about postpartum psychosis, because maybe it's more rare, but that's just
it is.
So would the kind of step up be like baby blues, postpartum depression, OCD, postpartum psychosis?
Not necessarily. A lot of women with postpartum OCD experience depression. So you might have experienced it, Scheana. I know I definitely experienced it. However, you experience it as a secondary, right? Because if I'm having these terrible thoughts and I'm judging myself because of these terrible thoughts, then naturally I'm going to be depressed. And I'm going to feel terrible about who I am as a mother and what kind of person would I be? Why would I have these children? You'll go down that slippery slope into Never Never Land with all of the what if thoughts. And so for postpartum OCD, the depression is usually secondary. Now, there is also postpartum anxiety, which, postpartum anxiety is it's not as intense as postpartum OCD. However, you're constantly judging yourself about how you're doing as a mother, whether you're feeding the right amount, whether you're bathing them properly, whether you're diapering them properly. So it's almost like you're constantly giving yourself a performance review to see how well you're doing as a mother. So postpartum anxiety, there's a lot of worries and ruminations, and I call it the ruminato in my book, where you're constantly just ruminating about all of the possible things that you might not be doing as a mother to be the best mother you can be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think people who suffer from anxiety or OCD or depression before they even get pregnant, do you think that factors into it, just being that much stronger after you have the baby?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a vulnerable period. If you've experienced any mental health conditions pre-pregnancy, it's really important to be more cautious and more vigilant about it during your pregnancy period, and perhaps getting that extra skill set, getting that extra tool so that you learn to manage it when the feelings and the thoughts occurs.
My doctor told me to have like a therapist ready because she
Yeah.
was like, just be prepared, have someone that you already have a relationship with, because that will be like an extra tool in your tool belt.
Absolutely.
Just in case.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who got depression while she was pregnant.
We talk about that too.
Yeah. She was like 6 months pregnant, and all of a sudden she was like, I feel like I need to go on medication. I hope this doesn't happen, after I have the baby. And it was like, it was really scary for her.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some of the best treatments or medications for someone who's experiencing that during pregnancy and postpartum?
That's something I experienced.
Yeah.
And I never, ever, ever heard of women experiencing depression during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Never had I ever heard of it. I did not
perinatal.
know it was a thing.
Yeah.
And I full tears for no reason. And Daniel would be like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And I was like, nothing. And just like, but I'm so sad and I can't get the sadness out of me.
Yeah.
And I'm such like a positive thinker. And like, if I can just think positively enough, maybe it will go away. And there was nothing I could do.
Right.
And it was like 3 months and it was so overwhelming. And I felt so alone.
Yes.
Because I had never in my life heard anyone talk about depression while being pregnant.
Right.
And then I had the intrusive thoughts of like, is my sadness going to affect my baby? Will my baby be sad because I can't get rid of the sadness? And then like my baby was crying a lot when he was first born. I was like, was it my fault? Because I was...
You see how much pressure we
Yes,
put on ourselves.
totally.
But why do we put this pressure on ourselves? We have...
Natural.
Come
It just
on, we have...
happens.
If you think about it, 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, we would all like congratulate each other for being super mom, for being a superwoman, right? And so society has this expectation of women to do it all, to be everywhere, to be everything. And because society has this expectation of us, we put this expectation on ourselves. We assume these responsibilities, and then we blame ourselves when we feel like we failed. Just because we, I don't know, gave the baby not enough milk. I don't know, whatever, right? For the smallest things, we will blame ourselves. We will add guilt onto our plate. And I don't know any men, sorry dads out there, I don't know any men who would be able to go through the experiences and the pressures that we have on ourselves. And, the pregnancy period, the prenatal period is, especially the first trimester is the most important period. And if you think about it, how much support do we give each other when things don't go well? Are we even supposed to talk about it? I went through a miscarriage during the first trimester, but you're not even supposed to disclose anything. You're not supposed to talk about your miscarriage. You're not supposed to talk about if something terrible is happening. You're not even supposed to disclose you're pregnant during the first trimester.
Why?
Why do we do
know.
that?
Right.
Because then if the worst happens, then you have resources, you have support, you have help. But it's like there's this stigma around it. It's like you can't talk about it before 12, 13, 14 weeks. And
why do we do that? Why do we add that pressure onto ourselves so that we can appear perfect? We're not perfect. We're human. We're going to go through these experiences. They are not all going to be beautiful. Pregnancy might not feel blissful, and it's okay. And we should, and I hate using the word should, except this is a big should here. We should be able to talk about these things without feeling terrible about ourselves, because the support system is the most important barrier to mental illness.
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick little break and be right back. So y'all have been hearing me talk about how much I'm loving the clean and affordable skincare from Dime Beauty, and it is finally here. It happens once a year. The Dime Beauty anniversary sale is on with 25% off site-wide. Their work system is amazing. The Tinted Glow Wonder Screen, I'm obsessed with. The serums, I mean, I could go on, but this, I'm telling you, is a great time to stock up on your favorites and try something new. I have caught Brock multiple times now poking around in my little skincare fridge because he loves the products as much as I do. And, you know, sharing is caring. Dime Beauty is clean. It's a high-end skincare that is affordable, and it really works. I put it on in the morning. I use the night cream, the serums, the cleanser. I'm telling y'all, this stuff makes my skin feel so good. I wanted to take the guesswork out of my routine. So I just started with their Works collection, and the Work system is everything you need in one powerful package. It has a gentle cleanser, a toner, 2 incredible serums, and 2 luxurious moisturizers like I just told you about. It's incredible. And while you're out there, do me a favor and check out their serum duo, their Tinted Wonder Screen, or their incredible retinol alternative TBT creme. Go to dimebeautyco.com now to get 25% off site-wide during their anniversary sale. Stock up on your favorites or try something new, but hurry, the sale ends on Monday. So go to dimebeautyco.com, dimebeautyco.com for 25% off site-wide until Monday. Okay, we all know my hair has been through the ringer this past year between the amount of bleach, toners, colors, heat, products, all of the things I've been doing. So I asked this next brand for some recommendations on moisturizing and styling products for my hair. They not only gifted me with some amazing products, but they also educated me on my hair needs. And this is Alterna Caviar. There's nothing basic about them. As pioneers of alternative hair care, Alterna gets its name from being one of the first, if not actually the first, skincare-inspired hair care brands on the market. Their products also contain an age control complex, which is based on the science of anti-aging skincare. So people normally only associate anti-aging with your body's physiological age, but hair aging is different. As soon as your hair grows from out of your head, it starts aging, and it's affected by the sun, heat tools, brushing, all the types of everyday factors. Alterna's age control complex is formulated with antioxidants to help undo the effects of intrinsic chemical and environmental aging and protect against future damage. Caviar is not just in the name or tossed in for fancy marketing. There's actual caviar extract in all of the products, which is one of the richest sources of omega-3 fatty acids. True luxury isn't a matter of what something costs, but the expectation that it delivers. I could go on and on about the many benefits of these products, helping with the overall vibrancy, elasticity, and manageability of your hair. But this is one of those areas where you just must try it for yourself. Go learn more and pick up some product at your local Ulta or on Amazon.com. That's Alterna, spelled Alterna. Alterna, the caviar of hair care. So I want to talk about your book that you have sitting right here.
Oh, yes.
Hello,
I brought
baby.
a copy.
Goodbye, Intrusive Thoughts.
I brought a copy.
Literally, when I
need
saw
this in my
this
life.
on the shelf at the conference, I was like, I need this.
I feel like we all need this book. Even, this book is written for moms overall.
Mm-hmm.
It was inspired by my own postpartum journey. And here's the thing. Before I had children, before I got pregnant, I was already working with mothers going through postpartum OCD and anxiety and perinatal mental health. Except I never believed that I would suffer it, because I had OCD ever since I was a little girl, and I thought I managed it, and now I'm an expert, and it's not going to faze me. And you know what? Here's how daunting OCD can be, and how daunting the postpartum period can be, is that because you don't have your mental, bandwidth, you kind of just get lost during that period. So while I was crying myself to sleep at night, and every little thing, like you said, I was tearful. My husband was, I always had to tell him, you can't put that on TV. You can't put, whatever, anything having to do with children being harmed. Oh my goodness. It would throw me into a spiral.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how devastating this period was for women in general. So this book was inspired by that. And as I was writing, yes, new mothers need the help and the resources. However, I've been a mother for almost 8 years now. I feel like I still need to read some of my own advice,
Totally.
Just this morning, getting my boys to school, I'm like, I can't do this anymore because of the pressure, having to get them ready, having to get them to school, then all the, shenanigans that happens in the morning, right? And it was just all too much. And, in my book, I talk about how to deal with intrusive thoughts, how to do less with the perfectionism and the mom guilt that we experience. I talk about how we have our perfect household disease, which we all have because we all want
I've given
perfect
up.
household.
No, my house is a mess. Even with cameras around, I'm like, welcome.
Yes.
Like, I can't.
Yes,
I
at
don't.
some point you have to give
Yeah.
up.
That's your reality.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
literally cannot.
And-
I just 3 children throwing toys
Yeah.
everywhere all
Yeah.
day. I clean up when they nap, and
Yeah.
I clean up when they're in bed. I can't clean up all
But
day.
you know what?
long.
I'm very proud of you for that, because I know we're similar in that way, where we do always want to paint the pretty picture
Oh,
and
yeah.
have everything look
Yeah.
perfect. And it's like, sometimes that's just not realistic.
You just gotta say
So
F
good for you.
But I want my house to be clean.
Totally.
But now I'm just like,
Sometimes you
Sorry.
just gotta,
Yeah.
whatever.
whatever.
Yes.
Mhm.
And
Yes,
I'm
I think-
trying to let a little more loose with my daughter, and even just her getting dirty. Like, I had the teachers at her school pull me aside the other day and say she was afraid to go in the sandbox because she had white shoes on that day, and she didn't want to get them dirty because mommy tells her not to like get her socks dirty. And I'm
Right.
like, well, yes, I do tell her she doesn't need to play
Right.
outside in her white socks.
Yes.
Take your socks off, put your
Right.
Crocs on,
Yeah.
So I've now had to tell her, honey, it's okay. You can get dirty. And it's like, that's me having to let go of a little control.
Sure.
If she's painting at school,
Yeah.
she's not going to have her little smock on.
Not
She's going to
smock.
maybe, not the spock, the smock.
Yeah.
But it's like I've had to let go of that control a little bit. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. She
Yeah.
gets dirty. It's okay.
It's okay. It's
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
You kind of have to, because the more you try to maintain that facade, the more pressure you're adding onto yourself. And then, of course, it's not always going to be this way. And then you're, right? I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. And then you get into a burnout phase. And that burnout period is terrible to feel, because that's when mom rage occurs.
Yeah.
That's when you're teary all the times. That's when you don't have the emotional bandwidth, emotional resources for your family. And if you're not well, your family's not well. Because the truth is, even if you have a partner who is equally involved, they're not going to care as much as we are. And that's also because we've been brought up to care about our family and our home. If you even look at the research that's been done on that, do you know that boys and girls, even if they live in the same household with the same rules, with the same chores, girls are usually compensated less in allowances than boys?
No way.
Yes way.
Oh, wow.
No.
Oh, my
And
goodness.
on top of this, when boys don't complete their chores, they're more overlooked than girls. Girls
Interesting.
get reprimanded more for not completing their chores, where boys are like, oh, it's okay, you can do it
Oh,
later.
you're a boy.
So here's you've got girls and boys.
I do.
So
Mhm,
you can
mhm.
decide, how you're going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But when this research is shown to parents, most parents aren't even aware of this.
I imagine.
So it's just like innate reactions that we have toward how we raise girls and how we raise boys.
I'm very conscious of that. And I feel like as like a twin parent too, like I definitely had the I feel like my heart would be breaking when I would look at the girls and I would look at one and be like talking to her, and then the other one would look at me, and then I had to break eye contact with one baby to look at the other baby, and I'm like, I can't give them both. Like,
and then you have Asher in the background, like, Mom.
exactly. Oh my gosh, it's so much. Well, I know you and I are both, Scheana and I are both like really big advocates of like moms taking care of themselves so that we can be a good mom.
Yes.
So like, what is if you could tell a mama that's listening, that's maybe having a hard time, like what can moms do to like really take care of themselves? Like little things, big things.
And to help the mom guilt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, well, first of all, let's get rid of the term self-care
Okay.
because that's been overused, and who's listening?
Yeah. Let's
Right?
get some new words out there.
So here's the thing. When you think about self-care, it sounds optional. Self-care, I'm caring about myself more than my
And like
family.
a luxury.
Right, it's a luxury. It sounds like a privilege. And then that adds guilt because you feel like you're taking time out for yourself instead of giving more time to your family. However, what if I say what you have to focus on is self-maintenance?
I
So-
like the difference. Yeah.
It's a difference, right?
Yeah.
So like your vehicle, do you take it in to, change the oil? Do you fill it up with gas every week? Yes, you do. You might even take it for a car wash or vacuuming all the sand from the car, right, inside. So these are the maintenance that you have to take care of for your car, because if you don't, what happens?
It's going to break
Breaks down.
down.
It's gonna fall
It ain't
apart.
going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, how are
Wow.
you different?
Yeah.
So you have to take that time to maintain your wellness, whether it's making sure that you're even taking 5 minutes a day just to be, just to reflect, just to breathe. Those 5 minutes might be the best 5 minutes of your day. However, you need it.
I love that.
So replacing self-care with self-maintenance is super important. Number 2, boundaries. How many of us realize that boundaries doesn't just consist of physical boundaries? We also have mental boundaries and we have emotional boundaries. And unfortunately, still today, there are many opinions out there about what you should and shouldn't do.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're
The internet's full of
breastfeeding
them.
or
They are
not.
so ready to share.
Right? Yes,
Yeah. I didn't
yes,
ask for
yes.
your opinion, but
Right.
you want to tell me.
Yes. So with all of those unwelcomed opinions, you have to establish your boundaries, your mental, your emotional boundaries from them. And also when we talk about mental emotional boundaries, we have to establish mental emotional boundaries with ourselves. So what does that mean? When we're feeling guilt, when we feel like we're not doing enough, when we feel like we're not perfect enough, we have to have boundaries with, well, why do we feel that way? Why is this important? You have to reflect and take time to really delve into those deep-seated insecurities that we have as women. And if it's okay to give them another dinner of McDonald's, oh well. If it means that I have more emotional bandwidth to be with my children rather than making a full, cooked meal, then that's what you do.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize what's important to you. And if connecting with your children is your number one priority, then that's the boundary that you have to establish. Not making sure your house is clean, because I don't think your children cares
Right.
whether your house is fully clean.
It's so important. And just like, I'm even thinking about like last night, I did like so much meal prep for the kids, like egg bites and made waffles and like all these things, making them from scratch. And then I picked up the whole house to like have a good Monday, but then I didn't get enough sleep. So then I'm not taking care of myself because I want to set everything up for the kids. Like I have to I've really been trying to like set a hard like stop cleaning by 10 or like something because all of a sudden it's midnight and I know I have to be up at whenever the kids wake up at 5:36 and it's just
Yes.
Yeah.
You're giving me some good advice right now. Boundaries, like priorities, all of that is so good. Ugh.
Boundaries is something I'm trying to be better about too. I feel like I struggle in that department. And also going back to the opinions of everyone, I wanted to ask you, how long technically is the postpartum period? Because I had opened up about everything I was experiencing on season 9 of Vanderpump Rules. None of that was really shown. And then a year later, we started talking about my OCD, and that's been now a part of my story the last couple of years. But I've had so many people be like, "Oh, your daughter's 2. If she's 2.5, you should be over that by now. Oh, postpartum this." And I'm like, well, I did talk about it the first year. You just didn't see a lot of it. Unless you listened to my podcast, you wouldn't know what I was struggling with. So how long technically is the postpartum period? And do you think it can never fully go away or just be maintained?
Yeah. Well, first of all, those comments are terrible.
Yeah.
Because again, they're your business and you're allowed to disclose whenever you feel like you're ready to disclose. And just because a woman discloses later on doesn't necessarily mean that she isn't experiencing the suffering during that time. So the postpartum period technically is the days after birth till a year after birth. Though we all know just because that is technically the postpartum period, if you're not taking care of your mental health, it will spiral and it will worsen over time. Because here's the thing, and especially with anxiety and OCD, the evidence-based treatment for it is exposure therapy. Okay? It's not avoidance therapy.
No.
It's exposure therapy. And what exposure therapy basically means is that I am going to confront my fears in a contained environment, in a safe environment, at the pace that I'm ready to go. However, when you are exposing yourself to your fears, there's 2 things that you tackle, that you gain from it. The first is that you gain the feedback that I actually can handle this situation. It's not, I have the resources, I have the confidence. So you're building more resilience and tolerance for this discomfort. The second benefit that you get from exposure therapy is that you get the corrective feedback that this terrible consequence might not be as terrible as you imagine it to be. And the problem with avoidance is that whenever you avoid, you never get that corrective feedback. In fact, not only are you not getting the corrective feedback, you actually empower the thoughts even more. You give them more magnified significance than what they really deserve. And therefore, they're going to be even scarier. So if you have a fear of, is this going to last forever? And you avoid confronting that, then yes.
I have so many fears.
Yes. And
I'm like, oh my gosh, we could
for
talk
you,
about the
same
list.
thing. Whatever are the intrusive thoughts that you had, the fears that you had, the more you avoid them, because yes, they're daunting. However, the more we avoid them, the more power they get, the less we feel about ourselves, the less resilient we feel. And that's what turns it into a spiral. So
you have to face it.
You
carefully.
Well,
when it's a fear, you're like tiptoe into it.
I mean, I had to, the exposure therapy I had to do on myself are no different than any of the ones that I would subscribe or prescribe to my patients.
Yeah.
Which is, you have to think of the worst. And for me, the worst was me doing something where I'm favoring one more than the other, and then the other dies of some horrific death. So I had to write narratives, write scripts about the harm that I caused to my boys, and them dying, one of them dying of this horrific death, and then the other one hating me forever because I caused this, right? That's what we all fear.
Yeah.
And then I had to put it on an audio, and I looped it, and I had to listen to it again and again and again and again until I was able to tolerate it.
Wow.
And a lot of people think exposure therapy is harsh or it's causing trauma. And let me just explain, let me clarify this because this is important. You're not generating any new material in your brain than what you're already thinking. Right? I'm not saying I want you to purposely make up this new thought in your exposure therapy. No, I'm asking you to write out exactly what you're already thinking, what you're already fearing, and then replay those images or replay the audio again and again and again until you grow tolerance to it. The other misconception is that you have to do exposure therapy to the degree where you're happy with it or you're okay with it. And that's not the point. I will never be happy with my children dying. I will never be okay with me favoring one boy over the other where I'm to be blamed. However, I do exposure therapy because I am more resilient for it. I am more tolerant of the intrusive thoughts that I have because of it. Not because I enjoy the process, not because I agree with the thoughts, but because now I can deal with it. So the example that I often give to my patients and when I speak about this is if I asked you, don't think of the yellow duck. Don't think of the yellow duck. Don't think of the yellow duck. What are you doing?
Thinking of a yellow
You're
duck.
thinking of the yellow duck. When I asked you not to think of the yellow duck, right? And that's what happens when we tell ourselves, don't think of this, don't think of that.
Yeah.
We're thinking of
It
it.
like spirals.
Exactly. However, what if I say, I want you both to do nothing except think of the yellow duck? Yellow duck, 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 yellow duck. My voice is probably sounding boring now, right? Because you just get so used to the yellow duck that it becomes boring.
Yeah.
And that is the point of exposure therapy. And that is the evidence-based treatment for OCD as well as anxiety disorders.
I want to get into a little more about that and then ask you about medication. We're just going to take one last quick little break. This episode of Scheananigans is also brought to you by BetterHelp because that is what all of us need. We need something better. We need some help with that mental health therapy, y'all. I cannot express how important it is. It has been life-changing for myself, for Brock. We recently started couples therapy to just kind of figure out, our parenting differences and better ways to communicate with each other. We've both been in individual therapy, and Brock started with BetterHelp when I started talking about it on this podcast. He's like, whoa, wait, I want to try that. You're in therapy. I want to be in therapy too. And now we're in therapy together. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and then you get matched with a licensed therapist. And here's a great thing. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. I feel like therapy is so helpful for learning just like positive coping skills. How to set boundaries has been a big one for me. And it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/goodasgold today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/goodasgold. Okay, so we were talking about exposure therapy, which I have done firsthand. One of my biggest fears was doing anything alone with my daughter. And so then I started doing so many things alone with her. I would take her to the mall. I would take her to Target. I took her to freaking Disneyland, which I know you've done, but I'm like, for me, that was like huge. And now it's like, I'm upset right now, but I'm like, I'm so proud of myself because I'm not as afraid when I do things by myself with her anymore. But it's like, I still have the intrusive thoughts.
Yes.
And I go back and forth with, do I want to be on medication? Should I not? Should I just keep trying to be strong? And so I wanted to ask you, are you on medication right now? And what do you recommend? Like, when do you think like, yeah, maybe you should?
Yeah, I'm not on medication, but I just also want to say I've seen you do that. And it's like so beautiful to see you push through your fears. And I even remember those like little music classes we did in Venice Beach a little bit. And I remember you telling me you were so afraid to take her to a class by yourself and how big it was for you. And I didn't realize what you were experiencing at the time. But now, like learning, you know, getting to know you more and all that is just like such a big thing. And I think it's so inspiring for other women to know, like, you can do it. Even though it's hard and it's scary and you have the thoughts, like you're living proof that you can do it.
Thank
So
you.
I love that. I never got on medication. I'm very much, unfortunately, maybe like a grit your teeth and push through it kind of thing person. I did get a therapist and all of that, which really helped. But it was like, it eventually faded away.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it took a few months, but I was able to like move past that like depression season. But what is the medication kind of?
Well, I mean, I think it's really a personal choice, and it really depends on how much you're functioning. If you're functioning and you can push through with exposure therapy is actually the first line treatment for anxiety and OCD. So if you can find a therapist who can help you go through the nuts and bolts of it, however, then also it's not just about the surface fear. We have the underlying core fears that we also have to tackle. And unfortunately, not many therapists are knowledgeable enough to know you have to also go down to the underlying layers of the fears.
My therapist wants to do. I'm like, I don't want to go all the way back to my childhood. Leave me
Well,
alone.
you don't have to go back to your childhood. It's not about going back to your
some
childhood.
of them are for me.
It's more of like, okay, if all of your fears came true, what would be so terrible about that? And then whatever that is there something that's worse than that? And then whatever that is, you keep going as far down as possible to the deepest, darkest layer of your fears. And then that's what you do the exposures to. It's to those deepest, darkest layers. And that is the hardest part of exposure therapy. All of the things that you do initially, like, you know, for me, it was not putting bottles into the sanitizing, you know, that gadget thing that you throw all the bottles in. It was just letting them air dry and then not checking on my boys. When I checked on my boys, I had to actually put my hands on their chests. Like just seeing their chest rise and fall wasn't enough. I actually had to feel it. It was not doing that. It was not even going in and checking on them, just trusting that they're still alive because I see it in the baby camera, you know? And then eventually it was like not even using the baby camera because women, you know,
I don't know if I'll ever get there.
women a decade ago
she'll be
didn't have it.
17 and still have a monitor in her room.
Well, so it's those are the baby steps that we take initially. However, that's really still the superficial layer.
Yeah.
What's underneath all that fear? Like if some terrible consequence happened to our children, what would that mean about us? That is what we have to do the exposure therapy to. And of course, if we can't do in vivo exposure, which is like you said, you know, taking her to Disneyland and taking her to
breathe
places.
wear off her and not monitoring her breaths all night long.
Yeah, so that's in vivo. However, not everything is in vivo. So like for me, I mean, I couldn't do exposures to actually harming one child. So that we have to do that through scripts and audio loops. And then if you're someone who you can't tolerate the exposures, then there is medications. We don't have research that shows that medications are going to cause harm during the prenatal period. So that is a possibility. However, you know, it's important to consult with your psychiatrist to ensure that that is your best option. But if you can do exposure therapy, if you think about it, doing exposure therapy and changing the way that you think. So even for depression, the evidence-based treatment is cognitive behavior therapy.
And that is
Cognitive behavior therapy and exposure therapy is a subset of cognitive behavior therapy. However, CBT basically means we're going to teach you the flaws in your thinking because we all have flaws in our thinking, whether we're aware of it or not. So it's to identify the flaws in your thinking so that you're able to recognize it and adjust your thoughts more accurately. And then the behavioral part is teaching you ways to engage with your environment, with your world in healthier ways rather than maladaptive ways. So for those of us with OCD and anxiety, we engage with our world by avoidance. That's not healthy. That's actually going to make it worse. We give credence to our intrusive thoughts, which empowers the thoughts even more and actually makes the OCD cycle go even faster. So
I feel like I'm getting anxiety thinking about it because then I'm thinking about my thoughts that like, I have so many thoughts that feel crippling and things that we don't do. And I like just because I want to be safer and I feel like it's not safe. So we can't do it. So like only one child at a time. We have three kids and 2 adults. So it's not like my mind spirals sometimes.
Right. So from what you're saying, it sounds like that you do worry a lot about their safety and their well-being, which most parents do as well. The question is, how much of your time is spent on it? So it's natural for all parents to be worried about their children. However, if it impedes on your ability to parent effectively or impedes on the child's functioning because you're constantly ruminating over what might go wrong, then that's going to interfere with your functioning. And then that's when you get diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. So what you could be experiencing might be postpartum anxiety and depression is naturally the secondary, or it could be a combination of the two, which a lot of, new parents experience.
Yeah. I have a question going all the way back to like the postpartum period, because to me, it's mind blowing that like medically it's diagnosed or like said that it's just the first year. Because from my understanding, and I haven't like done the research, but from like what I've seen, like even as women, our bodies, if we've carried a baby, like hormonally and like all like the nutrients that are in our bodies don't fully return back to baseline after 1 year. So we still are
sometimes it doesn't ever return to baseline.
Exactly. So like we're still experiencing depletion. Like maybe we're breastfeeding up to 2 years. I wonder if like maybe that window
could
to
be
1 year
extended.
might change, because even as between when I fed Asher to now when I'm feeding the girls, apparently the American board of somebody said that you should breastfeed your baby up until 1 year if you choose to do that. And then now they say, oh, there's benefits to breastfeeding your baby up to 2 years. And I'm like, what in the world? How are these things just changing now?
Right.
If this is like common knowledge stuff, like why wouldn't it have changed like 50 years ago? Like
there wasn't
it's just
attention.
Wild. So I think postpartum period is longer than a year, even though
I agree.
the
I
medical
do too.
community doesn't say that.
I agree.
Like our hormones, our nutrients, our minerals, like our body's not back to normal after a year.
No, certainly.
Especially if we're breastfeeding and all of that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But let's think about this. Who do you think do most of these research?
Probably men.
Okay.
They don't know. They've never experienced.
Right.
And wait.
Okay, speaking of men, I have read some things about men experiencing postpartum depression.
Yes.
So I did want to ask
postpartum depression,
about that.
postpartum OCD, absolutely. Yes, hormones play a part in what we experience. However, if you think about it again, the weight of the responsibility falls on your partner's shoulder as well. So if you happen to be a new father, and you already have vulnerability for depression or OCD or anxiety, then of course, this is a critical period for you as well. And it's easy for you to slip back into that OCD, depression, anxiety state of mind. So yes, it can happen to both women and men, which is why we know postpartum mental illness isn't just hormones. It's that sense of over responsibility that's natural for all women.
That's
and
kind of what I
men.
wanted to ask too, is if you get a surrogate, can you still experience those same postpartum things that are obviously not hormone based?
Yes.
Because if we do have another child, that's our only option other than adoption. So I'm like, how is that going to be for me when I've already connected with a baby inside of me? I've also lost a baby, but now I'm going to put the baby inside someone else. And like, I still think I'm going to have postpartum OCD and anxiety and who knows what else. So that's not hormonal.
No, it's not. And that is a very real possibility because you care. So let me just let me just say one thing. A lot of women who suffer from postpartum OCD and anxiety feel like they must be bad mothers. And the truth is, you suffer because you care. OCD tackles whatever it is that you care about. And of course, during this postpartum period or even perinatal period, the most important thing that you care about is your newborn or your fetus, right? Your baby. So if that's what you care most about, then boom, OCD is going to tackle on that. And that's going to be true whether you have a surrogate or you choose to carry the baby yourself.
Yeah, I feel like it might even be worse with a surrogate because I'm going to be.
It's not in your body.
Oh my
What do
gosh,
you know? It's
totally.
like, that's
Yes, you are right.
I can
How
only
do I just
imagine.
put that in someone else and just trust that in 9-10 months from now, like everything's gonna be okay?
Right. You
Like I don't know. I'm not there mentally.
Right.
We're meeting with the fertility specialist at the end of this month to fertilize the eggs that I froze. See if any of those can, be a viable embryo. If not, we'll go through another round of freezing eggs, making embryos.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's just like one step. Like mentally, I am so not there to be like, oh, okay, we have embryos. Let's get a surrogate. I'm like, I still need to figure out if
you're ready.
I can do that.
Yeah.
If I'm a one and done, I'm very happy with my life right now. Maybe we adopt. Maybe we adopt an older kid. Maybe we don't get a newborn. Like there's so many things. And it's like people constantly are asking, when are you having another? When are you having another? When it's like, I've just started lying and I'm like, soon, we're gonna start trying soon. Because then they stop asking.
Right.
If I say I'm not, and then I have to go into, I had HELLP syndrome and my traumatic labor and just like so many things that I've learned to either just be like, nope, done.
Yes.
Or we're gonna try soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
because everyone has an opinion
Everyone.
on your body and your life. And that blows my mind. Like if I have friends that say they don't want kids, I'm like, oh, good for you.
yeah, live your life.
You live your life.
Right.
I don't have to tell you how I think you should live your life. I don't know why people
it's not
think
for everyone.
you should do that.
Agreed. Agreed. So you have to be ready for it mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And that means going through the process. And perhaps if that's the route that you take, even going through the process of, okay, if you do choose to have a surrogate, what would be like your worst fear about it? What would be the worst thing to happen from it? And then to prepare yourself by writing these scripts. One thing that I tell a lot of moms to do is what I call the 15-minute worry time. Because we naturally worry, right?
You give yourself a period of time to worry?
Yes. So like for 15 minutes, once or twice a day, whenever you find time, is you take a pen or pencil and piece of paper, not typing, and you actually write. And you're writing your worries, not ruminating, writing your worries. So I'm worried about my children's health, period. I'm worried that if they don't get the nutritional value, then they won't be their best self, period. So, if you hear it, it's not a runaway train where if you're ruminating, it's a runaway train.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're writing these worry statements, it's like a train that stops at every station. And if you're able to write these worries out, I guarantee you're going to run out of worries before that 15-minute is up. And if that 15-minute is up and you're out of worries, what you have to do is keep writing until that 15-minute is up. And then how is this helpful? Well, number one, you're externalizing your worries. You're not keeping it in here. It's actually on paper. If you're able to see what your worries are, you're more able to work with the worries rather than keeping it in your head and ruminating. And you're setting aside specific times to do your worrying. Because if you're going to worry anyways, why not take control over it by deciding when you're going to do it rather than letting it spontaneously occur like an IV drip of worries into your veins.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I'm going to go home and write down all my worries. I have a lot and I think it would actually help to get it out and like list them because it is kind of like an IV drip and it's just kind of here and there. And then like, I never actually fully think through it because again, like positive thought girl, like I just like try to move
We're so
past
similar
it.
in that.
Yeah. But then it still just comes into my head. And I think if I just wrote them all out, it would be like, what is it?
Cathartic. Therapeutic.
Yeah.
Therapeutic, cathartic.
How about we both write them all down and then we compare?
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably have a lot of similar ones. I literally, even when my girls started eating foods, like I was so chill with Asher.
Yeah.
I'm like, eat whatever. You're good. You're a kid. You know what you're doing. terrified of like everything, had to make everything the exact perfect texture and like chop the right way, and like still was scared. And it was like, why? I was good with the first one.
Yeah. I was
Why
not.
am I terrified now?
Yeah. I felt like that's where my intrusive thoughts started, was right around 6 months. I mean, I was terrified of dropping her.
Yeah.
I had a gnarly dream when I was pregnant that her head fell off, and I picked it up and put it back on and it was fine. But that was the first like real intrusive thought I had. And I was sleeping. I woke up and I was like, oh my God. So in that time, while they can't hold up their own head, I was terrified.
That's so scary.
But then when she started eating, I was like, oh my God, she's going to, and then it was like, that's when I finally opened up to my therapist between 6 months and a year. I'm like, I'm afraid of her choking. But then at about a year, it was like, okay, well now I'm afraid of her falling down the stairs. Now I'm afraid of this. And that's so many. It just it spiraled.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly as I was saying, if you don't attend to your thoughts, if you avoid it, then they're just going to keep spiraling over time.
Have you ever talked to anybody about having intrusive dreams? Because my poor husband, it is like the middle of the night, 2 a.m., whatever, who knows what time, and I'm dead asleep, and then I have like a very quick, like the baby's falling off the bed or something, even though there's no baby in our room, they sleep in their own cribs, and I jump up and I grab him, like, the baby, and then he's like, what is happening? This literally happens at least 2 times a week.
No
My
way.
poor husband,
Wow.
he's like, you woke me up at 3 a.m. and I couldn't go back to bed. Do you ever talk to
Well,
anybody about that? It happens to me so
wonder-
often. It's terrible.
I mean, we dream about things that we worry about.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you work on those worry times, like if you did it twice a day, for a week, are you going to start seeing less of those dreams?
Hopefully, because my poor husband,
Because
Daniel,
you're
literally last night, he was like, you woke me up at 3:30 because it's always something new. I think I had a dream that like someone had the baby and like it was a stranger, and I like was, and I just like, get the baby, and like I thought I had like a vision that someone in our room, like terrifying things, but it comes out of nowhere. I'm dreaming about like rainbows and sunshine, and then that just like pops up.
Unicorn kidnapping.
Boom, boom.
I wonder, test it out. If you're doing the worry time because you're acknowledging the worries already, they're already on paper, then perhaps you won't need to dream about it. Because when we're dreaming, we're processing our thoughts. We're finding solutions to our problems. So if this is a problem, your worries are technically are made up problems. And if you're writing them out and you're externalizing them, you're giving them, a place to work with, space, then perhaps you won't have those dreams.
That would be nice. We'll see.
One thing that I do want to add is I hear you guys, you're talking about having your positive thoughts. And I think having positive energy is very, very important. However, what I do want to make a differentiation is there's a difference between just positive thinking versus optimistic thinking. This came from a lot of positive psychology, 2 decades ago, with affirmations. You wake up in the morning, you tell yourself, oh, it's going to be a beautiful day, everything will be wonderful, blah, 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 blah. However, if you're only thinking in these positive ways and then something terrible happens, you haven't really worked out, well, how am I going to deal with this not so positive thing, right? And then what happens is then it makes you question, well, what happened? Why am I having, not a great day? Didn't I put out positive energy out there? And this isn't, this positive thing isn't happening. So what I teach my patients to do instead is to think optimistically. Which is, I have no idea what's going to happen today. What I do know is that whatever comes my way, I have the tools and the problem-solving skills to deal with whatever lemon gets thrown at me. So that's kind of like a shift in thinking where it's not just, positive. However, it's I can handle it, whatever that is.
Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to do that a lot when she's swimming and we have her in swimming lessons, but it's still like one of my biggest fears is drowning. And you've heard about kids, they fall in the pool, they
Oh,
drown.
yes.
Like that's
Oh,
a real
yeah.
Drowning
thing.
is
Yes.
silent.
It's
That's so
terrifying.
scary.
Yes.
And then I've heard about dry drowning. And I'm like, oh great, she swallowed a little bit of water. Is she gonna die tomorrow? Like so many things.
I've had
Yeah.
those
But like yesterday, like we're filming and she's in the pool and Brock's waiting to get in. And so like my feet are right there, but I'm not in the pool with her. She's like, watch me, Mom. I'm like, and I was just like, hold on, like wait until dad. But I'm like,
Right.
you're fine. You take swim lessons, you know how to come up for a breath. And that's optimistic
Yes.
thinking, right?
Yes.
Like I'm like, you're
Yes.
okay. You know what to do.
Yes.
I'm right here. God
Right.
forbid I need to get in. I'm right here.
Yes.
But I was just like,
Yes, she has the skills.
Yes.
She's learned to swim. She knows what to do.
yeah.
And if anything happens, you're right there. So that's the optimistic thinking that
totally.
you know.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I have one last question for partners that struggle to understand. And this was one thing that was great about having Brock at the conference with me. And
That's
he
wonderful.
stood up and asked a question. It was
Yeah.
so amazing. But what would you say is the best way to communicate what you're experiencing and the best way for them to support?
Yeah, I think a lot of women during the perinatal and postpartum period feel alone because we're again expected to do everything. I would ask the partner to read my book. In fact, my sister, my sister just had her baby at 43, her second child a few days ago. And my mom gave him the book. My mom's like, you need to read that.
Yes. I love that.
And there is, in this book, I do share different stories of women I've treated around the world. And in one story, it does specifically talk about the conflicts between the partner and the mother, and how she felt alone and she felt like she's expected to do everything and to change her schedule and to only think about the baby. And yet all her partner could do was tell her, go take more yoga lessons. Go do more meditations. You need to calm down. And oh my gosh, how many women have actually calmed down because you told her to calm down? And I think anytime my husband has said that to me, it had infuriated me even more, right?
Yeah.
So it's learning for the partners, it's learning about what the woman is actually going through. Not just the bodily changes. However, the emotional expectations that are placed on her, the heaviness of all of this responsibilities that she has to carry that he doesn't. So like just because you're not carrying the baby, why do you get to keep doing all of the same? Why do you get to go play golf?
It's always golf.
Right? Why?
Always golf.
Yes, why? Why can't I not do the things? I can't even like have a glass of wine, but you can go play golf and go have fun with your buddies. Why is that okay? So I think it's and you know what? If you want to go play golf, fine, you go. However, you also have to have realistic expectations of me. If I'm not capable of doing X, Y, and Z because that's what I did pre-pregnancy or pre-baby.
Yeah.
So it's having these conversations in a way that he can understand it.
Yeah. Daniel and I are like communication like fiends. Like we just talk, like overly talk about things. But my husband has experienced anxiety and depression before we met, like crippling anxiety and depression where he couldn't leave the house. So I'm very lucky that he was able to at least have an understanding of what I was going through. And so he was really supportive, and it even shown a bit on season 1. But even with like household chores and stuff, like when I'm pregnant, he steps up. So I'm very like lucky that I have that. And I feel like Brock is that same kind of person. Like, I got you.
Yeah.
What do you need?
I feel like they've bonded over that.
Yes,
it's like one changes the diaper, the other one's breastfeeding, like very
We're a
hands-on.
team.
Yes. So it's really important, right? And then in my book, I talk about how it's important for us to share our invisible load. So one of the things that I think a lot of partners don't understand is all of the things that we mothers have to keep in our heads. So like school is starting. do you know what class your child is going to be in? Do you
Right.
know what school she
Yeah.
even goes to, right?
Yeah.
There was this comedian, I don't remember his name, and he joked about how the school called him to pick up his daughter, and his question was, okay, yeah, I'll come pick her up. What school does she go to? You know, and that is like an
But that
extreme,
is
but that is
reality
real.
for
Wow.
some people.
That is
Yeah.
real,
Yeah.
right?
Not us,
So-
but that's the reality
Yeah.
for a lot of
So-
people.
Totally.
Yeah, it's having these conversations about, what is the invisible load that I have to carry, that
Yeah.
I don't want to carry all by myself, that I need you to help with.
Totally.
I'm so excited to read your book, to have my husband read your book.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you can relate, hello, baby. Goodbye, Intrusive Thoughts. Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr. Jenny Yip,
you.
for being here. Nia, for co-hosting with me. Be sure to check out her podcast, Hold My Crown, and stay tuned for season 2 of The Valley. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for making this topic happen.
Yeah.
Yes,
having
no, this
us.
was
Yeah.
amazing. And thank you guys for listening and watching. We will be back next week. Bye.
Searching for this all my life.